Hello, nice to meet you.
This is Kim Ki-won from Richgo. Hello.
This is tax accountant Lee Jang-won. Many of you may recognize my face as I am currently one of the hottest tax accountants in South Korea. Today, we will discuss some very important tax matters, as it seems that various tax-related changes have been occurring lately. If you missed this, you could incur significant losses, so it would be good to watch this video until the end. The first point is that usually money transactions can occur between family members. However, you mentioned that lending money between family members could lead to a tax bomb. What does that mean? First of all, even now, when acquiring a house, you have to write a funding plan for the acquisition, but people tend to write it very carelessly.
They write it too carelessly.
So based on my practical experience, the broker calls me and asks, "Where did this money come from?"
Need to write this.
I use my own money, 1.2B1.
1.2 billion own money. Impossible.
Oh, that's not it. The moment you write this incorrectly, I call it an invitation in colloquial terms. I receive invitations from the real estate agency, local government offices, and the National Tax Service. You are invited. I don't want to be invited. It doesn't feel good. It's an invitation from someone who hasn't paid back well, and I've seen this. So now you say you also did it with 1.2 billion won, and you have 1.2 billion in cash because of the income you've earned during that time.
That's right. There's no way it's 1.2 billion. What do you mean? That's correct.
At that time, it was exactly in front of the fire. In fact, I borrowed 500 million won from my father. I should have started reporting it then. If I had used that properly from the beginning, I could have just done that and finished. Creating unnecessary investigations into the entire funds. If I had just used it well from the start, it would have been okay since it was borrowed. But if not, they go through everything, and that's correct. Also, if there's anything wrong, it gets caught, right? But the city of Seoul is continuously doing this, and the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport always has some measures when they announce real estate policies, right? So this has been happening since the 2017 Paris measures. Most people don't know that it has been happening almost every 3 months. They only buy a house once or twice in 10 years.
That's right.
You didn't know about this and didn't use such things in the past.
Where is this? Can't you just buy it?
Isn't it possible to borrow 100 to 200 million won from your mom?
That's right. That is possible.
Then, the land appreciates, and the person who appreciates the most is overwhelming.
Newlywed.
Most newlyweds give gifts to their parents when getting married, but since they don't write clearly about those things, invitations come. So, those who know do write a loan agreement with their father and mother. And as I was listening to the story, I suddenly became curious about something. Originally, the tax-free limit for gifts to adult children was 50 million won, right? Up to 50 million won, you didn't have to pay any tax. But in the case of marriage or childbirth, this increases to 150 million won. You don't pay any gift tax. Up to 150 million won. So if I gave my child 150 million won, I don't have to report it at all.
That's correct.
You don't have to report up to the gift property exemption amount. So not reporting this is not a problem.
There is no problem.
But your questions are really good. First of all, many people probably didn't know about the marriage and childbirth exemptions.
You need to know those things. Yes, you should know.
The law has changed, so now you can receive this within 2 years before marriage, 2 years after, and within 2 years after having a baby.
That's right.
If you exceed the period, you won't be able to receive it.
This can happen.
For example, I had a baby in November 2022, but this law changes starting in 2024, so there is only 1 month left in the remaining 2-year period.
You need to go quickly. This is it. You need to know this. Right.
Thank you for your words. And I thought about it, and I think people with some money would do this.
Have a good day.
150 million won is tax exempt. If you don't report it and receive an additional 100 million won, then you would have 250 million won, but the gift tax only applies to the 100 million won.
That's right.
Then the gift tax is the lowest at 10%, right?
That's right.
Moreover, if you report in advance, it's not just 10% of 10 million won. They also give you a discount, so you can pay only a few 100,000 won in gift tax and give each child 250 million won. So, in my opinion, shouldn't those who are not utilizing this really have to do it without fail?
You should start your own business.
Are you starting a business? It seems you need to register for taxes. As you just mentioned, even if you give it like that, you don't have to report it. However, if it's in the taxable range, you should report it in advance to get a tax credit of 3%. So if you utilize it this way, it becomes 9.7 million won. And secondly, if you're buying a house, I hope you report it, even if you receive 150 million won. Because if it is clearly stated, that you received a gift, there won't be an investigation into the source of funds. If the gift tax report is not filed, then 150 million won is just considered as a loan, so they won't know.
That's right.
There is a record of the gift tax report. It seems you received a gift. After checking it.
This is how it goes.
In short, when money is exchanged, it's better to report everything neatly, if possible, especially since most of the large amounts received are for real estate.
That's right.
Just as we analyze real estate with Richgo, the tax office analyzes the funds. The analysis of the funds goes like this. So far, I understand, but you can also lend more money to your children.
That's right. You can lend it, can't you? You can lend it.
In this case, you should write a loan agreement. I understand this, but if you write the loan agreement incorrectly, it can lead to big problems.
That's right. I've heard that kind of talk.
Let me tell you this. First, what you need to know is that while the loan agreement paper seems very important, the most crucial aspect behind it is whether the borrower has the ability to repay it. Recently, there was a third investigation by the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport. It was less than half a year ago. They lent 6.9 billion won to their child.
9B.
If you have money, you can lend it any time. So they bought a building worth 6.5 billion won with that. But the reason for this investigation, in my opinion, is just one thing. They also wrote a loan agreement.
4,001. That's right.
A person who cannot repay 6.5 billion won is not eligible. So we need to see if this person has the ability to repay But it's like this. I borrowed 6.5 billion won. But if I manage it well and am diligent, isn't it okay even if I don't have the ability to repay? This is very important because of that. So you need to create a certain level of proof, whether it's rental income or something else, with that funding. Because if I say I'm living in a Johns, a type of lease, there's no debt, right? If I piled on 6.5 billion won and bought something really big with Johns, I can't create assets. So you're very sharp. Yes, indeed, the data is lacking. So the first thing is to look at economic ability. The most common mistake is that parents of children in their 20s want to do something for them before they even start their careers, saying, try this with that. Let's say I lent money, but the child is in college and is receiving living expenses from me, and I lent 1 billion won. Can this friend even pay back the interest?
That point.
So because I can quickly identify the income statement, I know how much I've earned and how much I've earned over the past 5 years. Since I can quickly assess it, right? Don't just think that you can simply write a loan agreement without considering those things. Because in less than 10 years, it has become highly advanced. All the excuses that can be used with a loan agreement have already been used. When I say that, it becomes very clear. The excuses that can be used with a loan agreement are already known by the National Tax Service. And as far as I know, the National Tax Service's computer system is said to be among the best in the world. So they know how much someone earns, how much they spend, and even how much they can save in a year.
Right.
You really need to lay down a mat. This is not a modern situation where you can just cover your eyes and pretend. In fact, everything there is accessed through data.
That's right, exactly.
You explained this very well. There is a technique called PCI.
PCI.
There is a technique called PCI. P is property.
The assets will increase.
So this issue only arises when we acquire a house. Then what do you think?
Let's rent it out.
If you give the Johns funds, won't it get caught? And after going around once or twice, take the Johns funds secretly. But it already got caught in 2018. I sometimes mention this when I go, but every time I see this, I truly think a parent's love is endless. Please withdraw 990 million won from the ATM.
Yes.
When will you withdraw all of that?
It's 6 million won, withdrawing from the ATM.
You took 991.
So, it won't get caught.
Because we had that common sense back then.
On common sense.
If you withdraw cash, you won't get caught. That's why I used 990 million won for the deposit. The child must have reported the deposit with no secure income. Where did the 99 million come from?
Oh, right.
The P cannot be proven. P stands for property and C stands for consumption. How much have you spent over the past 5 years?
But it's too simple.
When you do your year-end tax settlement, you use credit cards, right? How much is the credit card deduction?
It comes out clearly. 100 million was spent. I'm explaining a lot today.
So you spend about 15 million won or 20 million won. If you spent 20 million won each year for 5 years, that's 100 million won, right? But you subtract the minus income. What is the income? Income, literally, is not just subtracted. For example, if the salary is 40 million won before tax, then, after tax, if you subtract all the income and credit card expenses, it doesn't amount to much. After subtracting everything, about 800 million won is unaccounted for.
Are you using the service? Oh, the gift certificate.
In other words, the PCI from the National Tax Service holds all the information about how much your assets are, how much you are spending, and how much you are earning. Now, if you look at it, there is already a strict inspection system in place, and if something seems off, then right away.
Yes.
That's how it becomes. The elderly are thinking about the past. In the past, they would give 100 to 200 million won.
Yes, that's right.
So, in fact, the government doesn't want to rely on giving 100 to 200 million won for Jeonse. That's why the new birth deduction was created. Even if you get married, having 100 to 200 million won is too much to handle.
Yes, right.
But on the other hand, the system was so good that it managed to handle everything. As complaints increased, they created that deduction.
I know that's how it is.
So really everyone, especially when it comes to money transactions, you should be very careful, and I think it's good to be cautious, even with transactions among family. Then I'm curious, can you give your children some living expenses?
Is that okay? Living expenses are fine. Is it okay? It's fine to give living expenses, right?
For example, I think a monthly living expense of 3 million won is fine, but how do you know if this is actually living expenses or not?
That's the key point.
Oh, you really need to remember this, CEO. It's because I studied math. I feel like I would have done well if I had become a tax accountant. This is exactly how the algorithm comes out.
Difference in KISS.
No, I'm curious because I heard the story. It's something that's not even in our questionnaire.
I have a very good question.
Because you need to know what living expenses are. Living expenses can only be for the dependent's living costs. Literally, there must be a first obligation to support. So, there is actually something called mom's chance.
That's right.
It's called mom's chance, where you use your mom's card. But if I'm a college student, it's possible. However, even as a college student, I earn a lot of money. I started a business.
That shouldn't be the case.
Because you have the ability to support yourself. It's not about age, but about the obligation to support. I heard this at first and called my dad.
I called my father.
Father, I was going to do this, but I guess I shouldn't.
This is it.
In other words, I lack the ability to be independent.
Yes.
At that time, only at that time, then will I also use living expenses at 30? I understand. But if that's not the case, it essentially becomes a gift. But everyone will know.
Those who are watching this.
No, I had received something like that from my parents while I was alive. I've never received anything.
There isn't, right? Most people don't have it. That's right. They don't receive.
The reason is that first you can give a deduction of 50 million won to your child for 10 years. Many people do not exceed this amount.
That's right.
Even if you exceed that amount, unless it's a huge sum, you can secure the recovery if it's not a huge amount. And third, when the investigation comes out, for example, I borrowed this from my father. If you bring a loan document like that, then there's nothing more to say. There are various variables. This comes into play during inheritance tax. So, in South Korea, the inheritance tax is imposed by adding all the gifts given to the heirs over the past 10 years before passing away. So, before passing away, you have no records of repaying any of the living expenses or the amounts you said you borrowed. Then, clarify this.
Clarity.
I will impose additional taxes as a gift, but the scary thing is that the penalties have been accumulating for several years. The additional taxes have accumulated a lot. The additional taxes are the scariest part. There was a gift I made 9 years, 11 months, and 28 days ago that got caught.
Just 3 days.
I have committed habitual offenses too many times, so at that time, I made a gift of about 320 million won. But the gift tax that wasn't paid, the additional tax for not reporting, and the additional tax for non-payment. The additional tax for non-payment amounts to about 120% over 10 years. So that means it's more than the principal.
That's right. More than the monthly tax. And this gets added on. Inheritance tax.
You must pay inheritance tax again. You must pay 2 additional taxes. This person paid around 300 million won.
3 and 20 million. 1 additional charge.
So, additional taxes are scary. It's just, like we usually say, it's a double whammy.
Yes, that's right.
You have to be very careful. I've never been caught during my lifetime. The tax accountant knows nothing. No, I'm telling you because I know. And this is being monitored for penalties. It's decisive. So when the National Tax Service imposes additional taxes, there's definitely a bigger piece of the pie. Otherwise, if they investigate due to inheritance or similar matters, everything related to overvaluation will be caught. So when inheritance occurs, the money received during one's lifetime, but the taxpayers feel wronged. They say, I got married. But then it becomes a bit late. Something needs to be addressed during their lifetime. We need to sort things out, but the deceased can't speak.
That's right.
So it could end up like that. While watching this good video and seeing good data, it's natural to also pay attention to your own account data.
It's really great today. I definitely want to say this. That's right.
And I now clearly understand why our tax consultant Lee Jang-won is rising in the tax industry. Usually when talking to tax consultants, they tend to be a bit serious or too calm, but he really indeed seems to speak with a sharp edge. Originally, I'm that kind of character too, but since I have a good relationship with the CEO, it seems to come out easily. Oh, is that so? Today we looked into the important matters regarding living together with our tax consultant, Lee Jang-won, and his family. I will greet you again with good content next time.
Thank you.